Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another deep dive into the lives of the rich, famous, and, as we'll soon see, deeply troubled. Today, we're uncovering the story of Consuelo Vanderbilt, the dazzling American heiress who seemed to have it all: beauty, wealth, and a marriage to one of Britain's most prestigious dukes. But behind the gilded facade of her life lay a tragic tale of manipulation, betrayal, and heartbreak. What if I told you that the seeds of this disaster were planted on her honeymoon, with a confession from her husband that would shatter any newlywed's dreams? Today, we explore the harrowing truth behind Consuelo Vanderbilt's marriage to the 9th Duke of Marlborough. Consuelo Vanderbilt was the epitome of a Gilded Age debutante. Born in 1877 into the illustrious Vanderbilt family, her father, William K. Vanderbilt, was one of the richest men in America. Her mother, Alva, was a social climber determined to see her daughter marry into European nobility, securing the family's place in high society. And that's exactly what happened. In 1895, at just 18 years old, Consuelo was married off to Charles Spencer Churchill, the 9th Duke of Marlborough, in what was hailed as the wedding of the century. Her dowry? A staggering $2.5 million, a fortune at the time. It was a transaction, plain and simple, money for a title. But for Consuelo, it was far from the fairy tale she had been promised. In fact, she went to the altar in tears, forced into the marriage by her domineering mother, Alva, who had locked her in her room and threatened her into submission. If the wedding day was a nightmare, the honeymoon would prove even worse. As the newlyweds embarked on their European travels, Consuelo was eager to make the best of her new life. But it didn't take long for her husband to drop a devastating truth bomb. Charles, the Duke of Marlborough, confessed that he didn't love her. In fact, he had been in love with another woman, an American widow named Edith Wharton. He had only married Consuelo for her money, which he desperately needed to restore the crumbling Blenheim Palace and his family's dwindling fortune. Imagine being an 18-year-old bride, far from home, hearing that the man you just pledged your life to had no intention of honoring that promise. For Consuelo, it was a crushing blow. Consuelo's life at Blenheim Palace was anything but glamorous. The grand estate, while breathtakingly beautiful, was a cold, imposing place. The Duke's aristocratic heirs made it clear that Consuelo's role was to be a dutiful duchess, producing heirs and managing the household, not a loving partner. And produce heirs she did. Within a few years, she gave birth to 2 sons, John and Ivor, securing the family line. But the Duke's treatment of her remained cold and distant. He was controlling, dismissive, and obsessed with maintaining his social standing. Meanwhile, Consuelo, who had been raised in the vibrancy of New York's social scene, felt stifled by the rigid expectations of British aristocracy. Her every move was scrutinized, her freedoms restricted, and her unhappiness ignored. As the years went on, the cracks in their marriage grew deeper. The Duke's infidelity became an open secret, and Consuelo found herself isolated, yearning for love and companionship. She threw herself into philanthropic work, using her position to champion causes like education and public health, but the loneliness was inescapable. By the early 1900s, the couple was living essentially separate lives. Consuelo sought solace in the company of others, including a rumored romance with Winston Churchill's cousin, while the Duke remained focused on his affairs and Blenheim's restoration. Finally, in 1906, after more than a decade of misery, Consuelo found the courage to leave her husband. Their separation was scandalous, shaking the very foundations of the British aristocracy. Divorce was still taboo at the time, especially among the upper class, but Consuelo was determined to reclaim her freedom. In 1921, their marriage was officially annulled, a rare occurrence that required intervention from the Vatican, as their union had been conducted under Catholic rites. The annulment was a symbolic act of liberation for Consuelo, who finally stepped out of the shadow of the Vanderbilt name and the Marlborough title. Consuelo's story doesn't end in tragedy. After her annulment, she found happiness with Jacques Balsan, a wealthy French aviator and industrialist. Their marriage was built on mutual respect and affection, a stark contrast to her first union. For the first time in her life, Consuelo experienced the kind of love and partnership she had always dreamed of. She spent her later years in France, living a quieter, more fulfilling life far from the suffocating expectations of aristocracy. Consuelo Vanderbilt's life is a testament to resilience. She was a woman born into immense privilege but subjected to immense pain. Forced into a loveless marriage, she endured years of unhappiness before finally taking control of her own destiny. Her story also shines a light on the darker side of the Gilded Age, a time when wealth and status often came at the expense of personal happiness. For women like Consuelo, marriage was not a union of love but a business transaction, with little regard for their desires or well-being. To truly grasp the gravity of Consuelo's story, we must understand the societal backdrop against which it unfolded. The late 19th and early 20th centuries marked a period when wealth, titles, and social standing dictated much of one's life path. The concept of marrying for love was, more often than not, a luxury afforded to those without societal obligations. For women like Consuelo, whose family names carried immense weight, marriage was a means to fortify alliances, secure status, and enhance power. The so-called dollar princesses of the Gilded Age, American heiresses who married into European nobility, were pawns in a game played by their families. Their dowries propped up struggling aristocratic estates while their new titles elevated their family's social standing. But beneath the glittering surface of these unions lay the painful truth: these women were stripped of autonomy, expected to suppress their desires and endure emotional isolation for the sake of appearances. Consuelo's story is emblematic of this phenomenon, yet her eventual rebellion against the system sets her apart as a trailblazer for personal freedom. Over time, Consuelo Vanderbilt became more than just a historical figure. She emerged as a symbol of defiance and reinvention. Her decision to walk away from her marriage, despite the potential backlash, was an act of courage that resonated with women in similar situations. Her memoir, The Glitter and the Gold, published in 1953, offered readers an unvarnished glimpse into the sacrifices and struggles she endured. It also served as a cautionary tale for those who equated wealth and status with happiness. Through her words, Consuelo reclaimed her narrative, ensuring that she would be remembered not as a victim but as a survivor who dared to challenge the conventions of her time. As we close this chapter on Consuelo Vanderbilt, let's take a moment to reflect on the enduring lessons her life offers. 1. The importance of personal agency. Consuelo's journey reminds us of the necessity of fighting for one's own happiness, even when it means defying societal norms. 2. The fallacy of appearances. Her story underscores the idea that external glamour often conceals internal pain. A life that looks perfect from the outside can be anything but. 3. The power of reinvention. Consuelo's ability to rebuild her life after years of unhappiness is a testament to the human capacity for growth and change. 4. Empathy across generations. While her circumstances were unique to her time, the emotions she experienced, loneliness, frustration, and a yearning for love, are universal. Her story bridges the gap between past and present, reminding us of our shared humanity. Today, Consuelo Vanderbilt is remembered not just for her beauty or her title but for her strength and resilience. Her legacy lives on as a reminder that even in the most oppressive circumstances, it is possible to reclaim one's narrative and chart a new course. So, the next time you hear about the Gilded Age or the opulence of Blenheim Palace, think of Consuelo, think of the young girl forced into a loveless marriage and a woman who rose above it all to find her true self. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Consuelo Vanderbilt. Her story is one of triumph over adversity, a beacon of hope for anyone facing challenges that seem insurmountable. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep uncovering the stories of remarkable individuals who dared to defy the odds and leave their mark on history.